What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is games night. So I'm going to show you Happy Little Dinosaurs. I have already played this with some friends, so I have a more than basic understanding of how it goes. I also have ridiculous beginner's luck with this game. So yeah, let's jump in. Obviously the first thing that comes out of the box rather, is the rules, little tagline for the game, and it goes into everything that I'm going to talk about in this video anyway. So within, I'm using this as a script now, within the box we find that we have 4 player boards, with each having a different dinosaur on it with their own abilities. Our first one is Stego. He is of course our main mascot, and he gains 1 point for every meteor card, which I will show you in a second, because it's kind of a big deal, the meteor card. It really can ruin your day. Our next one is Bad Luck Bronto. He gains +1 space, like +1 to his total score for every natural disaster card that he earns. I think it's that he earns, or if it ends up being a natural disaster that's in play, he gets an extra point, even if he doesn't earn it. It's been a hot second since I played the game. I did only get it like this month, but it still has been like a little while. I think it's during the round you've got to turn over a disaster card, and if it's the one that has +1 for you, you get the +1 to your score. If it's the -1, however, in this case a predatory disaster, he loses a point on his score, and at the end of damage calculation and doing all these scores and whatnot, everybody moves according to their score. There's 2 ways to win, which we'll get to in a second. Our next one is the Triceratops. He gains a point for every emotional disaster, thus giving us all 3 of the disasters: natural, predatory, and emotional. But he loses a point for natural disasters. And then my personal favourite, the Nervous Rex. He just looks so cute. I love him. +1 for predatory disasters, -1 for emotional disasters. We then also have our very cute little play pieces. This is the T-Rex, obviously. We've got a Stego, and our Bronto. They are also quite thick in profile, like they're quite thick, but it means that they stand up quite nicely. Even the T-Rex actually balances on his tail to stand up properly, which is really cool. And then last but not least is the cards, because I love this game because it combines a little bit of board game play, and I'm only going to need Stegos from here on out. A little bit of board game play with a lot of card play. So our disaster cards, as I mentioned before, we've got our natural disasters. There are 8 of these. They are, the first one is a downpour, so when it rains it pours, but only on you. Spa day, your relaxing spa day turns into tragedy as you start to sink in hot tar. This feels personal, where a small earthquake hits and seems to have opened only under you. You fall through a crack in the earth. The casual afternoon stroll. You're hiking a volcano that's been dormant for thousands of years. It erupts. Trapped. A tree falls on you in a forest and no one's around to save you. Is this your new life now? The uncommon cold. Quite topical right now. Is it just a cough or are you secretly dying? Time to start panicking. The bright idea. The sun isn't actually that bright, they said. You proved them wrong. And then last but not least is leave me alone. You get cut by a particularly sharp leaf. And they would give Bronto an extra point if they were the card you were playing for at the time. But they would make Triceratops lose a point. Our predatory disasters, again, 8 of them. We have Fired Up. Prehistoric fire ants unleash their wrath upon you, taking a nap on their hill. And there's a giant ant there, because that is a Brontosaurus in its... It's a big ant. Feeling squirrely. Life is going great. Just kidding, of course. You're attacked by saber-toothed squirrels. Shark with legs. Just your average day running in horror from a freaking land shark. A day at the beach. Your beach day turns into a whale of a surprise. Big old megalodon-sized whale there. Armed and dangerous. The tiny dinos looked adorable until they threatened to kill you and your family. These same ones, actually, that are gnawing on poor Bronto right there. Stomped. You're crushed by a mega dino and your herd awkwardly walks away. Sort of crushed into the earth there. Love hurts. All you want is to be loved. A boa constrictor gives you a hug. You're thrilled. And then Lil Cannibal. Maybe next time you should think twice before babysitting a carnivore. And they give my little nervous Rex a +1, but will detract from Brontos. Look here. Cool, and then last but not least, for our common cards are our emotional disasters. Now we've got the cookies you were looking forward to all day burnt to a crisp. Are the other dinosaurs really talking about you? Yes. You lie awake at night thinking about how much of a disappointment you are. Your friends plan a road trip without you. The exhaust fumes hit you as they drive away. Looks like your ex is better off without you after all. You try to cut your own hair. You watch as your self-esteem falls to the floor. Give yourself a good old cut straight from the middle You get ghosted by your dino date. That must actually be dead, you say to yourself as your tears salt your dinner for one. And then you visit a fortune teller and the crystal ball explodes. That can't be a good sign. Yeah. And then there are 4 meteors. Meteors act as any of the other 3, as you can see down the bottom here. Meteors are, I mean, it's great that they're like cards because they work very much the same way as a wild card in Uno. And they can ruin your day because if you gain in your little collection here, he only collects 5. Sure, the others collect. Oh no, okay, it is only 5. It's possible to get. It's possible to fill up on 5s, and that. Basically, the idea is you can't get either 3 of a kind or 1 of each, which means that if you have any 2 cards, regardless of what they are, and then you end up getting a meteor, that's it, you are out. It does not matter how close to the finish line you are. If you can make it here, you win. The other way you can win is by playing your point cards in such a way that you make all of your opponents lose because of the lose conditions. The point cards are, and again, feels kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh! If you imagine your point cards as being the monsters, you have some with no effects, and then you have some with effects, a little flavor text down the bottom there. Now our points go from 0, which is only the pet rock. It does have an ability. There is no 0 with no ability, because that would just be cruel. But we have a cool stick for 1 point. We've got a handy pan for 2. We've got the Grave Maker for 3 points. A Bonehead, 4 points. The Home Run Bat for 5. The Bow and Dino for 6. Why are they all upside down? The Sting Stabber for 7 points. The Iced Tea for 8 points, and then the Meteor Cannon for 9 points. So that's that. And then our ability cards, we've got our Pet Rock for 0 points, and it allows you to discard a point card from your hand and then add its value to your score this round, which doesn't help considering that you're getting 0, but it does mean that if you had something like this, and a whole bunch of useless cards in your hand, throw out a pet rock, discard your Meteor Cannon, suddenly you've got a pet rock that equals 9 points, and you're able to sort of fill up on a couple of more. So there is a little bit of strategy for playing the pet rock. We then come into our point cards. The Dino Grabber, you may look at another person's hand, choose a card and add it to yours, which is kind of handy. A Grappling Snake, which is 2 points and allows you to swap this card with the point card played to your right or left. You cannot swap for a card that has an effect, however. So you can only swap for the effectless cards. For 3, we have a delicious smoothie. You may discard a point card with an effect from your hand, then add its point value to your score this round. Which, again, you'd want to make sure that you don't want to use its effect, because its effect does not get used in that case. Number 4 is Fire Spray. You may discard up to 3 cards from your hand. Very handy if you're getting a new hand. Number 5 is our Mouth Trap. During scoring this round, switch the score of the highest scoring player with the score of the lowest scoring player after scores have been calculated. Calculation does come in a second. I'll explain why. The special Star Fruit. During the scoring this round, double the effects of Score Booster and Score Sapper cards. And again, we'll get into those in a second, because they come in as far as doing the scoring is concerned. Number 7 is our Trinoculars. You may look at the top 2 cards in the deck, choose a card and add it to your hand, discard the other. So you can essentially choose which of the top 2 cards you want. And then, coming into one of each, we have Hungry Plant for 8 and our Flaming Chainsaw for 9. Our Hungry Plant says you may swap the point cards of any 2 other players, and which obviously you would do if you wanted a particular person to gain a particular card, so that they would be eliminated, or maybe you just don't want that person winning and getting so far up the board. And the Flaming Chainsaw, during this round, all other point card effects are ignored. There is only one of them. It is probably the most broken card out of the lot. Now, if those are, to continue my Yu-Gi-Oh metaphor, if those are the monsters, these are our spell and trap cards. So as one of them said, we can double the effect of Score Booster and Score Sapper. There are 5 of each of those. Score Booster looks like a Hulk T-Rex, and Score Sapper is the Triceratops with knives stuck to his horns. Basically, one of them, the booster, allows you to add 2 points to any player's score this round, whether it's you, person to your left, person to your right, person opposite you, whatever. And the Score Sapper is the same, but you subtract. So it's an addition of 2 or a subtraction of 2, and with the ones that allow you to double the effects of it, it's either +4 or -4, depending on which card you've got. Now, if you had a 9, you play a Score Booster, and these work as instants as well. So if someone's thrown out for their point card, I think it was the Star Fruit, and you realise, oh, I'm going to beat that, and you have a booster in your hand, you throw the booster out, all of a sudden you're at 13 points, which is the highest point score you can get, and then that allows you to move 13 spaces down your little road to freedom, which, considering there's only 50 spaces, is what, 1, 2, about a quarter of the way. So 13's there, 26 is there, 39's there, and then 52 would be the next multiple after that. So it's about a quarter of the way. A really broken strategy, but if you manage to pull it off, there's basically no way you're going to lose as far as getting to the win space on the board is concerned. Your loss would only then come down to getting disaster cards. We have 3 disaster insurances, which has Stego in a skate helmet. It's very cute. You would play this card if you were going to add a card disaster to your disaster area this round. You move that to the bottom of the disaster deck instead. So that disaster, you can insure yourself against 1. There are only 3. There are 4 boards. And it is obviously entirely possible for you to get all 3 in the game, theoretically. So yeah, but it does mean that at some point, depending on how long your game ends up going for and how many of those cards you're able to actually get through, you may end up having to face that same disaster again with no protection. Next one, there are 2 of them. It is our score inversion. It's just doing a handstand. It's very cool. More of a headstand really because of his neck size. You would play this card during scoring. You switch the player with the highest scoring with that of the lowest scoring after they've been calculated. This essentially, you would play this in conjunction with like the pet rock. And you would obviously choose yourself and whoever's got the highest score, and basically doom them to getting nothing. Helpful, but only 2 of them. And then, last but not least, the actual final card, there are no other cards after this, is our Disaster Redirect. Kind of the same as the insurance one, but instead of going back to the deck, you can actually choose to send it to somebody else. With this card, it does not matter how many points you scored that round, the person with the highest score can still end up with the disaster card. You obviously earn disaster cards by not being the highest scorer for the round. Everybody still moves, regardless of what their score is. But say you only scored 3 points, you're only going to need 3 spaces. And if everyone else scored higher than that, you would be the one that gets the disaster card. And again, as I said, if you get 3 of a kind, so whether that's 3 natural, 3 predatory, or 3 emotional disaster cards, or if you get 1 of each, you are out, and the meteor counts as a wild card, which is, yeah, it's not fun. There are special 2-player rules. So it says here, it's little house rules for doing 2-player rules. Is you would remove all point cards with a value of 1, 2, or 3 from the main deck. Note that it does not mention 0, which is Pet Rock. Pet Rock stays in there because it's got an effect, so you can still, it'll still at least end up earning you a 4 anyway, once you pick some other card from your hand. Eliminate a player only after they collect either 4 disaster cards of the same type or 2 of each of the 3 types of disaster cards in the disaster area. Obviously the 2 of each allows you to get to 6 cards, and so even though it says 4 of the disaster cards of the same type, I would modify that house rule myself to being 6 of a kind or 2 of each, so it still ends up being 6 cards in total. Which means you can end up with, you know, an emotional disaster, a predatory disaster, and all 4 meteors, where one of them would count as another emotional, one of them would count as the other predatory, and the other 2 would count as your natural disasters. And yeah, that's about it. Even though instant cards are helpful, you obviously want to have at least 1 point card in your hand. Otherwise, you've kind of got to hand your entire hand in. Just like reshuffle it into the deck, which can occasionally spell doom for you when you inevitably pick up very low scoring cards and can no longer have your points boosters or point sappers or whatever, because you have to play a point card every turn. If you don't have a point card, you have to hand your entire deck in to get a point card. And yeah, it does get a little, in practice, I can tell you this already, it does get a little bit confusing when you're sitting there trying to figure out who won and who lost each particular round, because you've got to do your score calculation first. Now, what that means is, if someone pulls out the meteor cannon or the flaming chainsaw, and they throw out the just, you know, to really annoy everyone at the table, they throw out a point scorer, score booster as well. That would take them up to 13 points. It is after that has been done and that score sits at a number that doesn't need to be added to or multiplied or subtracted from or whatever. Once you've got the solid numbers, then the swaps can happen, the ones that swap after score calculation, meaning that even if someone did that and gave themselves 13 points, someone can then come in with the swapper and essentially hand them a hand of 1 in exchange for their hand of 13, and just really ruin their day. Like, they were there trying to make everyone jealous, and you've come out with a card that swaps scores around, and also at the same time given them the disaster card. And I know I'm saying that because when I was playing the first few times, even I was the one that had the rulebook in front of me, even I would sometimes be like, hang on, no, your card is higher than theirs, why did they win? And it would be because they'd added points, or they'd used an ability that gave them more points, or whatever it might have been. So yeah, it's an interesting game, but it's not one that you can sort of, you know, just throw out there for a quick game. You know, like, you can't just go, oh, let's play a 5-minute game of Happy Little Dinosaurs. There's a little bit of setup, a little bit of rule explanation, and it's definitely one for games night, and it is also one that I would recommend. Just noticed it says here, if we can get the glare off, 30 to 60 minutes is a game, ages 8 and up, 2 to 4 players. But yes, if you haven't played this game before, I do recommend it. It is quite fun, even if it does take a little bit of setting up and getting used to the rules. It is quite enjoyable. And yeah, that's basically all I've got for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a big old thumbs up, and if you're new here, please also hit that subscribe button and that notification bell as well. You're going to be notified when I upload new videos. I will try to leave a link to like the official Unstable Unicorns site down below, so you can get yourself a copy. The only game that Unstable Games makes that I don't have is Here to Slay, and I'm hoping to get my hands on it soon, because it looks very fun as well. But yeah, that link will be in the description down below. Yeah, if there is a particular game you would like me to have a look at and play and do a video on, let me know in the comments down below. I do enjoy myself a good board game from time to time. So yeah, leave those suggestions in the comments down below. And until next time, guys, keep your head screwed on.